we find out that several arms of the United Nations, including UNRWA and the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, have been working for Hamas and Hezbollah. So what does that tell you? Look, I've been in Israel and I've seen the UN workers. When you see them, they're not dressed in a suit and three-piece suit, tie, and they look formal, and they look like rogue mobs. They look like gangsters. They look like someone that would take advantage of other people. And when you see them driving around in Israel. And guess what? What we knew was going on all along, UNRWA and UNIFIL were part of this terrorist organization. And Israel's now telling the UN, they're never coming back in ever after this. And thank God for that. And look at it, 2 terrorists were killed were Sinwar's bodyguards. They were part of UNRWA. One worked as a teacher for UNRWA. So you know and I know the UN is evil, right? We're all clear on that, right? Pro-Iranian policy, what do you mean? They wanted to give hegemony to Iran and thinking that Iran could stabilize the region by letting them have nuclear capabilities, and then they would control their proxies. It was a policy of appeasement by the Biden administration and the UN. And it's insane. You know, we don't appease enemies. We don't appease psychopaths. Because you can't sit down and have tea with them and discuss things and say, hey, maybe we need to change our mind about this. No, you don't. Look at this. What is behind Hamas? What is behind Hezbollah? What is behind Iran? What is behind the Houthis? Well, these are all extremists. Excuse me, they're not. They're not extremists. They're actually following the Quran exactly as it states. So quit calling them extremists. Call them those who are actually practicing the political/religio of Islam. That's what they're really practicing. The United States showed its subservience to the Iran by it unfroze $10 billion in revenue. It lifted its sanctions and enabled the transfer of $16 billion and allowed them to sell about $90 billion of oil sales to China. So we just made them, their GDP go from 200 billion to 400 billion. Thank you, Joe Biden. But anyway, it's out of there. And then Joe Biden tried to pay off Netanyahu. I don't know if you heard about it. They tried to offer a compensation package to Netanyahu in a form of a bribe so that he wouldn't attack Iran. It's nuts. And now what happened? He wasn't listening to them. And so guess what the U.S. did? The United States leaked documents explaining Israel's attack on Iran. So much for a friend, right? Again, that's why we're happy Donald Trump got in there, because he won't do that to Israel. The Biden administration was doing that. And you have to know that the Biden administration is part of the cabal, okay? You know Joe Biden wasn't alive. It was Weekend at Bernie's. You ever see the movie Weekend at Bernie's? That guy wasn't alive, right? They thought he was alive. But what I'm saying is he wasn't running things. And I don't know if your leaders are running things either. Okay? I think there's a cabal, whatever you want to call it, Leviathan, a deep state. In America, we call it the deep state. They're the ones calling the shots, okay? And the deep state is thoroughly anti-Semitic, thoroughly anti-Israel, and thoroughly anti-Western. Thoroughly anti-Western. And so, anyway, what are we dealing with? Well, here's the thing, and you tell me, because I can't figure this out for the life of me. Why would people, elites who live in the West, want to destroy the West and want to destroy the West by Islam? Why would they want to do that? I don't understand. If they didn't like the West, if they don't like America, they don't like Canada, they don't like Australia, and they don't like the UK, then why do they live here? Why do they want to destroy? Why don't you go to another country and to destroy that other country? Why do you want to destroy where I live? And why do you want to destroy it with unmitigated, illegal immigration of Islamic people? Why do you want to do that? Because I'm not stupid. I can see what's happening. Because we call it in America, and I don't know what you call it here in the UK, but we call it the Great Transfer. It's happening. It's on purpose. And the problem is, we are seeing more and more of this. So this Islamic Revolutionary Guard was caught, and they busted him, this Farhad, I can't even pronounce his name, Farhad Sahid, 51, from Iran. He was supposed to assassinate Trump. So that would have been the third attempt on Trump's life, okay? And so Iran was behind that, obviously, and Iran said, well, you know, hey, we're going to have the dominance of the stage, and we're going to thwart the conspiracy of the United States and its allies. And they insisted last Wednesday morning, the outcome of the United States presidential election doesn't matter to them. Oh, really? When Donald Trump was president, how did that work for your General Soleimani? How did that work there? So you're saying it doesn't bother you. When you know good and well, you didn't try to do anything when Trump was in office, and you know now who's putting you on alert right now. So they're pretending, but they know they have problems. So anyway, Turkey's in the mix. I just got back from Turkey with Billy. Turkey's in the mix, you know, defending Yahya and Hamas, and obviously Erdogan's saber rattling. But at the same time, you got Russia saber rattling, and then, of course China's involved, and China supports Iran. So you have this axis of evil. And I'm not including China, but you know, this axis of evil, you know it very well. It's the, you know, the players of Gog and Magog. And I'm just sharing that with you, that the players are stacking up against Israel. I'm not saying it's going down tomorrow. I'm just saying the players are all stacking up, as you know. But let me talk a little bit about what this Islamic anti-Semitism is doing to Israel. It is making it virtually impossible for Israel to live with its next door neighbors that want to kill them and commit genocide and have their 70 virgins by killing Jews, okay? That's what Israel's up against. Guys, I've been on the ground. I see it. No media can tell me anything differently. And they have a problem, and no one is willing to say what the problem is. What is behind Hamas? What is behind Hezbollah? What is behind Iran? What is behind the Houthis? Well, these are all extremists. Excuse me, they're not. They're not extremists. They're actually following the Quran exactly as it states. So quit calling them extremists. Call them those who are actually practicing the politico/religio of Islam. That's what they're really practicing. Now, that's why Israel knows they cannot do a two-state solution. As you know, you take one of these guys out, whether it's Sinwar or you take Nasrallah out, and guess what? Another one comes back and takes their place. It just keeps perpetuating and perpetuating. Let me show you the Islamic mindset when you're on the ground in Israel, and you can read this in the Hadith and the Quran, but here's their mindset when you interview them in Israel. There is no such thing as Israel. It never existed. Like that's a total gaslight, right? The biblical characters were good Muslims like Adam and Moses and Abraham and David and King Solomon. Really, and Jesus too. The prophets built the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Really? You have a short memory. There's no such thing as a Jewish temple. Really, so what was all the thing about Solomon and all that? No such thing as a Jewish temple, right? Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine, so the land belongs to the Muslims. Islam is the only religion and correct way of life. All of the religions are false. The Quran even says all of the religions are false. Allah delivered the children of Israel, get this one, who were good Muslims from Pharaoh. And then they turned their back on Allah, and then they became Jews. That's insane, right? And like, am I really having this conversation with somebody? But what I'm showing you are quotes from Islam that's there in the Middle East that Israel is having to deal with. This is not coming out of a Cracker Jack box, guys. This is coming from their mouths. They really think this. And here's all the verses, the 33 verses of, don't take the infidels to be your friend, and the Jews and the Christians and all that other stuff. There it is, the 33 verses. So I'm not making it up. It's right there in their book. And so Israel's having this problem. And so the international community is saying, well, they need to just live in peace, and they need to have a two-state solution. How can you live in peace with someone that wants to kill you? Okay? It's common sense that you can't. And then, we're having this thing in the West that they're just turning a blind eye. You have it in the UK, like I said. Police in the UK admit there's a two-tiered policing for Muslim in Birmingham. Are you seeing that? Muslims are the arguably most privileged and powerful minority in the West. And on top of that, so here's the thing. You have Israel surrounded by this hatred that's fueled by Islam, okay? And at the same time, you have global anti-Semitism as well. So you have the left and even the right also coming against Israel with anti-Semitism. Look at our colleges and universities, guys. You better think twice of ever sending your kid to any prestigious college or university like the Ivy Leagues or the Western Ivy Leagues, or I don't know how it is in here, but I would never send my kid to these places. They are genocidal factories for anti-Israel and anti-Jew hatred. It's unbelievable what's happened to our colleges and universities. And that's in the West. And you know why? Let me tell you why. Because these lefties, these woke lefties, go into the college campuses and they don't realize that Iran and Qatar and a lot of these other governments of Islamic nature are funding our colleges and universities. Thank you very much. And are paying full tuition to send their kids to our Ivy Leagues. And so the Ivy Leagues take them in and yet turn the Ivy League college campus into an anti-Semitic campus. That's how it's happening, because we're importing it in. We're slicing our own throats, guys. That's what the West is doing. So anyway, you saw what happened in Amsterdam. I flew in there this morning to Amsterdam, and I was thinking about this. And dude, that was a pogrom. That was a planned attack of who? Jews, and there was over 100 Arab Muslim extractions that went on a Jew hunt. Guys, that shouldn't be happening in the West. But yet it's happening in Amsterdam. And yet, no one got charged, by the way. No one got charged. Amsterdam erupts into riots, youth mob set free. It's insane, right? Speechless. Police admit no arrest yet from Jew hunt in Amsterdam. Red card for Jews. Europe is becoming de facto no-go zone for Israeli soccer fans. Did you know that? That Israeli soccer people, they can't play in Europe. They have to play in, where are they at? What's the country Viktor Orban's at? Hungary, that's it, thank you. So the only place they'll play is Hungary because that's the only one that doesn't have all this anti-Semitism coming around. I think they tried to play in Paris and they had to have 4,000 policemen to keep the people back. I mean, it's insane, right? This is the West. What's happening here? In Amsterdam, they defaced Anne Frank's monument, or they put Gaza on it. Did you see that? It's unbelievable, right? Melanie Phillips writing, it's very clear that the ratchet effort is occurring in British and European Muslim communities. The absence of any pushback to the threatening, inflammatory, and often illegal behavior of subsequent anti-Israel demonstrations confirm that Islamic's beliefs that Britain and Europe are theirs for the taking. The media doesn't think that it's worth reporting or analyzing. So that's Melanie Phillips' take on it. You live here, I live in the West. Do you see that? I do. We've got a problem because that hatred is going towards Israel. It's going to Jews. And here's the thing. That means you and I have a job to do. You have to be the Corrie ten Booms that's going to stand up for them. Because it's not going to be your lazy pastor. I can guarantee you that. Our pastors in the West are cowards. They're not standing for Israel. They can't even pray for Israel. They can't even fly a flag in front of their church. They won't do it. So you know who's doing it? It's people like you. It's grassroots Christians, remnant believers that have the guts. And so, before I move on, one of the applications I would like you to do is if you know any Jewish people, go to them and say, hey man, are you okay? Do you need any help? I'm here for you. I'll protect you if you need anything.